Data is beyond any doubt the number one game changer for the next decade of insurance. All sorts of new data streams, the availability of ever more advanced analytics, the customer readiness, it all results in a perfect storm. So, what do insurers need to do to get the most out of data and digital ecosystems? How can they use data to transform the insurance value chain from top to bottom? To answer these questions, we've gathered some of the brightest minds in this talk show. It's hosted by Alexander Braun, professor at the St. Gallen University in Switzerland. Next level innovation in the age of data.
So hello, welcome everyone to this panel. My name is Alexander Braun. I'll be the moderator for this session, and I have with me Hiek, Christina, and Dennis. So before we get straight into the questions, maybe everyone can just briefly introduce themselves in one sentence.
Hi everyone, Dennis, associate partner with McKinsey. I am co-leading analytics for insurance in Europe and leading pricing, so really happy to speak today.
Hi, I'm Cristina Bellido. I work at VidaCaixa, the leading insurance firm in Spain. I'm the Chief Commercial and Data Analytics, and I'm responsible for data analytics, but also business development, product development, and channel development. So we are bringing together data and analytics, which I think is the key for the future.
Hi, Hiek van der Scheer. I'm responsible for data analytics within AEGON, which is a global financial firm. So I'm globally responsible to drive that forward.
Okay, so I guess let's start with data analytics and the insurance value chain. The transformation of the value chain is a key area where you can employ data analytics. And Christina, in which parts of the value chain do you see the biggest impact?
Well, thanks. Actually, we believe that the impact of data analytics is global. You have to have a global view of how data analytics can change the value chain. We are not focusing only on the traditional part of segmentation and propensity and personalization. We're also using and expanding data analytics to distribution, to investment recommendation, to fraud, to claims management. We really see a changing factor in data analytics, so we really want to have a global view and change the entire value chain through data and analytics.
Thanks. So maybe let's zoom in on a specific step in the value chain. For example, product design. How will data analytics change the concept of risk sharing, and how should insurers react to this impact through product offerings? I think, Dennis, you might have an opinion with regard to that question.
Yeah, I think when we think about insurance, right, the core proposition is risk sharing. But when we think about analytics and now additional data and kind of analytics on the segment of one, then we kind of counteract against these principles of risk sharing. So the question is, what can we do to kind of save the industry? And what is quite interesting that some insurances develop new product offering when, for example, the risk sharing concept is then introduced again. For example, less risky customers can they pay more to support, for example, more risky customers who are less wealthy. Yeah, so for example, middle-aged people supporting students and other things. And I think this is quite exciting development because despite of being more precise with analytics, we introduce new possibilities in products.
All right, so let's move on to data analytics capabilities. So to implement all that, firms need certain capabilities. Hiek, what's more important, the technology or the people who know how to use it?
Well, for me, it's really people first. I think it's all about the talent that you have in your organization. If you look at the developments in technology, it becomes a commodity. It's very easy to apply it. If you look around here, how much there is in the marketplace, it's pretty easy to leverage that. What's difficult is the talent, and to making sure that you have people that think creatively about what can you do with data, how do you build your models, how do you make sure that you have an end-to-end integration in your organization. That all comes down to people working together, and the technology is just an enabler. So for me, on all the work that I've done to create a data-driven organization, it's about talent and it's about the people side.
Great, so let's say if those basic capabilities are in place, But that doesn't mean that we automatically have a data culture. So a data-driven insurance company needs to have a data-driven culture. Christina, can you share your view on what a data-driven culture is with us?
Yeah, actually, what I think is that you really need the whole company, every person in the company, to understand how data analytics can change their day-to-day and the opportunities that brings them. But this doesn't come immediately. You need to work in different dimensions. One of the things we've done at VidaCaixa is we are taking very seriously the upskilling of people on data and analytics to show them what the opportunities are. We have created a training program that we call VidaCaixa, where more than 50% of the employees of the firm have gone through this program. This is giving us a minimum level of knowledge on data analytics and how data can change the way they work and the opportunities that bring us. Because otherwise, we were speaking different languages. We would see that people did not ask for the right things in terms of projects that we could do in data analytics. So what we're seeing after having done this program is that the type of questions, the type of needs that they're bringing us in terms of models and in terms of projects are much more complex. And then now we are really seeing many more opportunities coming from the use of data throughout the company.
Okay, so, and then another crucial ingredient, of course, is the data itself, right? It's not just the capabilities and the culture, you need the data itself. So some observers say that within their data strategy, insurers should put a lot of weight on unstructured data. And I think, Dennis, you've been looking into this question. So unstructured data meaning data that is hidden in folders, let's say in a non-machine readable way, for example, in the basement. Could you share with us why such unstructured data is a hidden treasure and why we should be looking at this data as well?
Yeah, I would just start maybe with a statement that even in structured data, there's still opportunity because despite, let's say, analytic models becoming commodity for everyone, they're still not yet applied everywhere because, like Christina said, they can be applied everywhere in the value chain. But then in the unstructured data, especially now with the advent of like Gen AI, we have new, very simple abilities to use much more data and then restructure it to be structured or just enable, let's say, people to work with unstructured data much more. And we see indeed a lot of insurances are taking this opportunity right now and they're making a leapfrog by using this data.
Sounds great. So now you already mentioned Gen AI, and so that goes into the direction of models. So maybe let's talk about AI models for a little bit. Heek, you are an econometrician by training and you have an understanding of these models. The term artificial intelligence or AI always has this mystic connotation to it. Why don't you demystify it a little bit? And after all, it's just a very sophisticated way of analyzing data, right?
Right. For me, it's like, well, when you have a statistical model, everyone understands it's a model, it's a simplification of the reality, right? So that's what you try to model. For me, AI is nothing else. It's the same. It's actually a prediction machine, and we are able now to predict faster, cheaper, with more data and more accurate, but it always stays a prediction. And if you look at whether it's Google Translate, if you type in a text, you get another text out, it's a prediction of what the machine thinks it is. Still, people in the organization often think it's the truth. And I think that's something that we, as an education part and making sure that we have a data-driven organization, making people aware of it, that it is still a prediction, and predictions can be wrong, and predictions should be treated as a prediction. So for me, AI is helping us to make better predictions, faster, cheaper, but it's still a prediction, like any other statistical model.
Yeah. So we're in the realm of predictive analytics, but then, compared to classical statistical models, these models in predictive analytics, which we call discriminative AI, lack interpretability. Right? So for the next 10 years, computer science experts are actually saying we'll have a lot of focus on either explainable AI or generative AI, which is a big topic since we saw this massive impact of ChatGPT. So generative AI being models that create text, images, audio, data, and so forth, instead of analyzing data. Now, Dennis, should insurers be focusing on generative AI or on explainable AI? What's your point there?
When we step back and think, why do we need both methods? Generative AI is, as we said, there are processes. We can squeeze the lemon, improve the processes, we can reimagine the processes. For explainable AI, it helps with big bets, with scenario simulation, with making bold decisions. And given that, usually the biggest value is usually created with bold decisions in the beginning, but then of course you need the efficiency after that to realize the value.
Okay, so that means focus, if you are on the analytics side, is clearly explainable AI, but generative AI will change the way we work as well, right? In the insurance industry too. So what do you think is going to be the impact on the talent acquisition and talent management of companies?
What we see for the companies which already implemented GenAI in a very successful way, it enables, let's say, people who were 5 times more productive, 10 times more productive than the rest of the company to be now factor 10 even more productive. So we speak about factor 100. And that means that in human resources, we start hunting more for like unicorns of people because they are now just so much more productive than the rest with the new tools. And this is a bit also a worrisome development, but I mean, this is also the reality of where we converge to.
So a huge boost in productivity, right? It's going to free us of some tedious tasks that are repetitive but need to be done in everyday life. So Gen AI is definitely going to have an impact there. But then there's also this whole topic of synthetic data and data privacy issues. And generative AI is one way to generate synthetic data. There are other ways. Could use resampling techniques and whatnot. But if we think about synthetic data and how that could help us to solve privacy issues, what's your point on that, Heek? So how can we leverage these technologies and the synthetic data that they generate?
Yeah, I think that all the privacy-enhancing techniques that are now available, and synthetic data is one of them, is really a lifeline for insurers to do more with data. Because with the privacy regulation, it's still getting more and more strict to share data within the company, abroad. We are a global company, so I would love to share data with, from different country units, combine them, and do the analysis. But with privacy, it's blocking some of the opportunities that we have there. With synthetic data, you basically create a completely simulated data, and you use the generative AI techniques for it. With the synthetic data, all the privacy is gone, so you can easily share the data. You can do a lot of work on the data. You can even resample the data so that they become a more balanced data set. You can do all your analysis on it. You can train your models, and eventually you can use the real data in the data for if you have the model in production. So I think it's something that is underused currently in insurance industries, and you see it in other industries being used way more already. And I think it's a kind of a lifeline, like I said, for the insurance industry to push our work with data.
I think that's a really interesting point because many insurers tend to stand at the sideline saying we can't do this because of regulation and privacy issues. And if you think about it, in more detail, as you say, then there's a way around that with synthetic data. It's really important taking that into account. Now, we've talked a lot about the models, and I love doing that as well. But if you think about it, is the real advantage in the models? Christina, what's your take on that? There's more to it than just the models, right?
Yeah, this is a good question because, and maybe some data scientists would not agree with me, but what my experience says is that the perfect model is not the best model. At the end, what you really need in the firm is you need to introduce the model within a process. And sometimes the most accurate model or the perfect model, known as the one that is more accurate, is either difficult to explain or has too many variables that are difficult to collect. And at the end, what makes data analytics powerful is that you are able to introduce this model in your processes. And the processes are complex, and it intervenes a lot of groups in the firm. So you really need to create this process, understand where in the process you need to put the model. And I would recommend always to start with a simple model, maybe less variables and less accuracy. But once you see the process is working, then the model is just a little piece in the process, and you can change the simple model for a more sophisticated model. But work on the process, make sure it's on production, because I was reading an article the other day that many data scientists in the firms don't see their models used. Sometimes it's because they have the perfect model, but then you cannot plug it in any process. It's too complex. So you need to find an equilibrium between accuracy and simplicity and explainability to make the models more usable, and then you're going to get the big advantage.
Yeah, I really like that perspective because it adds a new aspect to the whole area of data analytics. It's not just accuracy and all that, it's also applicability. So the best model is nothing without a business process or without an area where you can really put it to work in a way so that it creates value, right? After all, we're using this to create value for the firm and the customers. But that also implies that models are going to be, to a certain extent, commoditized over time. So what do you think, how is this going to change the role of the data scientist if models themselves may be just off the shelf? Right. And you know, what are you going to do as a data scientist?
Well, I agree with Christina that it is way more important to think about how do you actually leverage your model in the organization rather than the model itself. So that's a role that is really important. But I see it in a changing role of the data scientist of being someone who develops the models to someone who is more a controller of the models. Because developing on the models is easy. You have now tools like SageMaker, H2O, Data Robot. You have your data, you throw it in, almost automated, and an ML model comes out. The role of the data scientist is now to look at, did we do the right things? Did we use the right data? Is the model fair? Is it not biased? That is the first role of a data scientist. And I think when you democratize analytics, more and more people will run models, so the data scientist has to control more models. And secondly, they have to make sure that it is integrated in the end-to-end process to make sure that it is actually leveraged by the organization. Well, once it is implemented in the organization, it's not like a static model that is done and you're happy with it. You constantly have to monitor it, whether it's still doing the same thing, whether there are no drifts in the model, and whether it's still performing as expected. So for me, it's a big changing role. When I came on board at AEGON 7 years ago, I was thinking, okay, I need more and more data scientists. It's the sexiest job on the planet. Now it's really changing to saying, well, within the insurance industry, I don't need all that data scientists. I need people that can actually make it work in the organization.
Yeah, it's interesting. So that also implies that over time we'll probably see more low-code and no-code applications where people from the business side can work with these things as well, and the data scientists will be in the background maintaining, let's say, the bigger and more complicated models. Let's maybe, with the rest of the time we have, move on to some organizational aspects of data analytics in insurance. So those are the questions, where in the company are the data experts located? Which degree of top management support do you need to be able to implement all that? Should we outsource the whole topic, right? Should we do this ourselves, or should we maybe hire someone to do it for us? Christina, what's your take on these issues?
Well, my view is very clear. You need to put a data analytics expert on your board of directors. That's essential, because this is what's going to be the game changer. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to take the most out of it. So this should be top down and also bottom up, as we were saying before, in the sense that we have to teach the whole organization, what's the advantages of data. You need to work on talent. You need to work on people that have this job that we call translators, people that is mixed between business people and know how to take the most out of data. So I think you need to have it very present from top down. You also need to have a center of excellence, and then probably even create small analytic units in every one of your business units, because this is the way that analytics can permeate the entire organization.
Maybe as a follow-up question, if you think about the process of transforming the organization, what's the best way to inject this data analytics thinking into the companies? Would you go top-down or more bottom-up?
I would say we need both. And then what we've seen also in the organization is that we have a key role, which is middle management. Usually because we have young people at the bottom, they're data scientists, they're data analysts, they're very comfortable using all these new technologies, new ideas. And then you have the top management, which really believe on data analytics, that can be a changer in the organization. But then you have middle management. Middle management are people with much more experience. They know a lot of the business. but they don't have that expertise on data analytics. And what we've seen is that sometimes there are stoppers to change, in the sense that their teams will bring to them ideas that never go that they're never finally applied because they are not so confident with this technology. So we're spending a lot of energy on upskilling these middle management teams into being much more sophisticated and knowing the advantages of data analytics. And I think it's key that it really goes from top down, bottom up, and middle management. It's also impregnated with data analytics.
Yeah, so the analytics needs to be injected in the company, but it can then also change the way the company operates and things. It can change the mindset. So Dennis, what changes in insurance organizations do you see regarding things like customer centricity or hierarchical thinking once they adopt this data-driven approach?
I think maybe first I really like this point of we change the processes, but we not only change the processes, we reimagine the processes with the new opportunities from the present with the analytics methods. Otherwise, we don't generate kind of the full value out of them. And I think what we also see that, I mean, what is the core of analytics? It's trying out things. It's making experiments. And this makes usually organizations less hierarchical because these ideas which are coming up, they have then not only to be accepted, but they have to be, let's say, there should be a platform how to put these things into kind of production, how to test out things. And this is usually quite exciting because it really makes more like of a startup in the big companies, really enables to use this crowd intelligence, what is already there, but not yet fully leveraged.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So transforming these big organizations into more dynamic organizations using an experimental approach based on data and evidence-based management. So I think there's a lot of value to be had. We still have some time left, so maybe one question now towards the end with regard to regulation. So regulation is always a big issue when it comes to data. We already talked about privacy issues and the way how synthetic data can help us to get around that or to alleviate these concerns. We tend to have a lot of discussions with insurance executives that say, we got to be very careful and we can't use this kind of technology because there's a European regulator. We're in Europe here. They're going to introduce this AI Act, and we're going to have strict boundaries on what we can do. Does that mean they're essentially shutting us down and we're doomed and insurance innovation with data is not going to happen in Europe? Or what's your view on that? Are we at a disadvantage compared to North America and, let's say, Asia in this area?
Two answers on that one. First of all, I think regulation has helped me quite a bit with my data analytics journey. The GDPR, but also now the CSRD around sustainability requires a lot of data from the organization, good data from the organization, and it has basically fast-forwarded some of the data management work that I've been doing. So around, common taxonomy around data, the quality of the data, the availability of the data, we need to have that in order to fulfill the GDPR or the CSRD requirements. So in that sense, some of the regulations is helping me, although it is a burden for the organization to get it in place. With the AI Act, I'm a little bit more doubtful. On one hand, I think it's good that there is an AI Act coming up because, everywhere in the press there's a lot of discussion about the risks of AI and what it will bring to us. On the other hand, if it is purely a European act, I think it will slow down the innovation on AI, in particular in insurance in Europe, because most of the insurance models will be classified as high risk, which means that there is a lot of regulation around it, how to fulfill on that high risk element. So that has requirements on how you build your models, the feasibility, the data around it, the data governance around it. And if you look at all the startups and also the challenges that all the insurtechs already have to catch the right traction, I think this will be another challenge for them to overcome in order to be really successful. So I'm afraid that it will slow down some of the AI work in Europe based on the AI Act, in particular for insurance.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that we are sort of handcuffed by regulation, but I guess we have to make the best out of it because there's a lot of value in the whole topic. So we still have a little bit of time left. What I'd suggest to do is, and this is completely spontaneous, maybe each one of you can give us a 30-second final statement with regard to data analytics in insurance. And whoever likes to start, what is the punchline with regard to the topic?
Happy to start. For me, it's treat data analytics really as a journey in your organization. It's not something that you do overnight and you are a data-driven organization. It will take a lot of time, a lot of effort to get through all the departments, through your leadership, to the middle management, to really get a data-driven organization. So again, see it as a journey, a transformational journey to get AI, data analytics in your organization embedded.
Thank you.
I agree with you, and let me say one more thing. I also think it's important to have the internal talent. This is not, even though you may use providers to build certain models, at the end, the knowledge of the models and the knowledge on how to exploit the data and take the most out of it, you need to have it internal. It's not something that you can use a provider to do it. So believe in it and have the internal talent to make sure that this goes ahead.
Very interesting. Build up the capabilities. Dennis.
Yeah, I agree with the point said. I think it's our journey to be even more evidence-based and to kind of democratize our knowledge and our decision processes more. So that's why I think it's even more exciting what is now coming with new tools in the next years.
Perfect. Wonderful. And I would say this concludes our panel. Like the Swiss Railway, always on time. Thank you very much for listening and enjoy the rest of the event.